So when we are functioning better, it's no surprise that our businesses function better as well. That's a very well-known fact. So what you might not know is that we can actually use science to manage our stress better and turn our stress into a superpower that actually helps us grow our businesses. Today, this is episode 2 of 3 with Jay Pottenger. He is a mental health speaker and he also does speaking on neuroscience. He is a co-owner of EQ Minds, and we're going to go through all of the things about stress as a business owner, how to reduce it. We might even touch on a little bit of how technology plays a role in aggravating our stress levels and what we can do right now if you're in the middle of a meltdown. This actually is going to be a really good episode for you. So if you're in the middle of a meltdown, turn up the volume, stay with us. We're going to talk you through it. Thank you, Jay, for coming back on the podcast.
Oh, pleasure to be back again.
So I think we just get straight into it. As business owners, tell us about stress in the workplace.
Yeah, so stress is everywhere. And I'd like to say that stress has got a bit of a bad name in today's modern world, because whenever we think of stress, or at least when most people think of stress, they always think of it in this negative connotation that stress is so bad. But there's a lot of research showing that it all depends on how you interpret stress, whether you see stress as something that's overwhelming that you can't handle, usually due to time pressure, or it's actually something that is just a little challenge or a speed bump helping us to get where we need to get to. So how do we interpret that stress that's coming in? But there's no doubt there is a lot of stress. I think there's some Gallup surveys saying that, 1 in 2 Australians are facing significant stress each day.
I am the one.
What's actually
happening there?
Yeah. So what's actually happening there when we're stressed? Well, you've probably heard around what's happening is we get this amygdala hijack. So the limbic brain, the emotional part of the brain, which involves the amygdala, hippocampus, and a variety of other things, starts taking control over the brain. And we get reactive. We're not responding like we should. That means we have conversations with our colleagues or our clients, or worse still, our family, that we shouldn't have because we're overreacting to things. So it's really important that we have these tools to help us calm down, to relax, to stay in the present moment and sort of hit the pause or the reset and go into that next interaction in a much more positive frame of mind. And I can share some strategies with you a little bit later around how we can transition in a much more positive frame of mind.
Yeah. And for those that might not be super confident with the whole neuroscience thing, the amygdala, that's what people call like that lizard brain. Hey, that the almost like subconscious brain.
Well, the amygdala, you've got fear, the fear and flight perspective. So the amygdala starts taking over with that, and we start overreacting to things. Whereas the hippocampus, the memory center, that's when the memories start going back to, I had this stressful time before. What happened when I was stressed in the past? And we link it to those emotions. Often they're negative emotions, which again can be problematic. Whereas the prefrontal cortex is all around our executive function, where we, do our planning, we make measured responses. And that sort of the connection, and we see this especially with kids, the connection's not as strong, especially in boys. So therefore, they get more of an emotional response. And as we get older, that generally goes stronger. But some would argue that many things we're doing in our modern world is weakening that link. And because of that, we get more of an emotional response when we do feel a little bit triggered.
Yeah. And in our last episode, we were talking about things like emails and notifications, and I guess the broader role that technology plays with adding stress to our lives and making us more reactive instead of proactive. What role does technology play in aggravating or even just like affecting our stress levels?
Yeah, there's no doubt it's impacting it, I think, in a very negative way. So what's happening is we're getting more stimulus on top of ourselves. So we're seeing our resilience levels going down because there's just more and more that we've got to deal with. In fact, there was a great Australian study that followed, I think it was over 800 people, and they measured what's called the DAS-21. So they measure your depression scores, anxiety, stress, and sleep. And they looked at people who had problematic smartphone usage. Now, problematic just means that you choose the phone over other things in your life. So that sounds like pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
that uses a mobile phone or at least a smartphone these days. And what they found, no surprise, the more people that were on their phone from a duration perspective, the more stress they had in their life. Unfortunately, they also had more depression, anxiety, and of course, their sleep scores were a lot worse. So what we're seeing is technology is just contributing to these stress levels that we have because we're so connected. We do not get any time. There's like no downtime before. It used to be you'd go to work, maybe you got a little bit stressed at work, but at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whenever you finished, you could forget about it. You could go home. Now we take this wonderful little device home with us and we never get what's called psychological detachment because we're always thinking about work.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because I am that person, unfortunately. And I've really been trying to work on like my sleep routine and stuff. And it's like a lot of these things, I think, as you're speaking, business owners, that they're aware of, right? Like we all know, like we shouldn't have our phone in the bedroom and we shouldn't have screen time before bed. But God, it was just so hard. Like I wake up because I have my alarm clock on my phone, which I know it's not the best thing. I need to get myself a proper alarm clock. It's on the to-do list. It's the first thing I grab. As soon as I wake up, my alarm goes off. I grab my phone. I have to turn off the alarm. Hello, notifications and emails and everything. And it's a bad habit. It's really hard to let go of.
That's a really interesting one because there's some really fascinating science around that, around when we're picking up that phone or maybe, we're reading the news first thing in the morning. Usually the news has a massive negative bias. Mm-hmm. So we're feeding our brains first thing in the morning, either stress from emails or stress from the news. And we have what's called the reticular activating system, a network of neurons in our brain, super important for filtering out information, but also for deciding what information we're going to allow in. And basically, every morning when you pick up that phone and you're feeding it stress and negativity, well, you're setting your day up to say, hey, reticular activating system, I should go start looking for stress. I should start looking for negativity. And our brain is in this cycle of wanting more and more of it. So potentially a better way to start the day is not picking up that phone, maybe getting an old school alarm and starting the day off with something that's good for your brain, like practicing gratitude or going for a walk or chatting to your partner or doing anything besides feeding it negativity first thing up.
Yeah, I started a couple of months ago. I did it for a month. I did breath work every morning. For a month. And technically, I was doing it through YouTube. So yes, technically I still had to look at my phone and access it and whatnot. But I found that was a really nice way to start my morning instead of looking at my emails. And it kind of got me out of bed and got my day started a little bit slower than, not slower, I guess, in the time spent, but my mind felt slower. I wasn't getting up and immediately looking at notifications and my heart starts racing and all these pressures start building up. It was a really nice way to start my day, and I think I need to bring that back into my routine.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you felt that you were slower. It's probably because you were in a parasympathetic state. So your body's in this nice, relaxed, calm state, which is where we need to be. And yet we spend most of our days in this heightened sympathetic state where it's almost like this state of stress. Our body's all amped up and we spend so much of our day, in this heightened state that we need to have downtimes, and we've just removed so many of the downtimes. You actually remind me of a really interesting study that was done by Microsoft Human Factors Lab. And what they did is they explored people that were doing back-to-back meetings over 2 hours. No surprise, most of us do back-to-back meetings for 2 hours. And then they measured their stress levels, and then they had the same group take regular breaks throughout that 2 hours. And no surprise, every time they took a regular break, their stress levels went way down. So it was like they were hitting the reset or the recharge. Now, it's funny, we carry these things around all the time. Mm-hmm. We never let that battery go to zero. And yet for our brain, we're more than happy to let it go to zero all the time because we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and we never give it time to sort of hit the reset and the recharge. Because what do most of us do whenever we get 5 minutes during our day? When we get 5 minutes break, we pick up the phone and we start scrolling. So it's probably not really giving ourselves time to down-regulate, to get into that parasympathetic nervous state that you were talking about first thing in the morning. Instead, we're in this, excited state throughout the day.
Yeah, you're so right. And I probably felt like I was slower, but I was actually just at a normal speed or, like waking up like a normal person should. I'm just so conditioned to, waking up and starting my day at 100 miles per hour. Yeah, I think, and I love your analogy of what you said about not letting your phone die, the battery die. So we shouldn't let our own battery die before we recharge it. Yeah, I'm going to use that analogy. That makes a lot of sense to me. Finally, I think you've cracked it for me. It makes sense now.
Well, it all came to my attention because my wife took a photo of me, and this was years and years ago, and she took a photo of me in the kitchen and showed it to me and said, this is how you start every single day. This is when I was working in finance. I would go into the kitchen, pour myself a massive cup of coffee, get cortisol pumped up as high as I possibly could, and then I'd check the markets to make sure everything was, what news drama had happened so that I could speak to our clients about it. She was like, this is how you start your day every day. It's such a negative way to start the day, and it really has changed my life, starting it in a much more positive way.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel like that's the only way, or you get into these habits. Like even for myself with the whole alarm clock and the me using my phone as an alarm clock and reaching for my phone first thing, I literally began to tell myself, like, if I don't use my phone, like I find it really hard to actually get up. Like I was telling myself this like narrative of, by scrolling, it helps me wake up in the morning before I can actually get up. Otherwise I'll fall back to sleep, or some like, I don't know. It's like, I sound like an addict trying to like tell myself the way to continue to use this device. But yeah, I do think we kind of condition ourselves to get used to these particular conditions that we put ourselves through.
Oh, absolutely. And we can make up any story to support whatever we want to support. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I feel like we have given stress a bit of a bad rap. Not all stress is bad, right?
No, not at all. I mean, stress shows that you care, that you're moving in the right direction, that you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to help yourself grow. So I think we often need to reframe stress. And there's a very simple little tool that we use, this little reframe tool, and it's a great way to, the next time you're feeling, agitated about something really small, do you have to do it or do you get to do it? Because often this stress that we face is actually a privilege. Mm-hmm. It's because we're in situations where, we're getting to achieve things, we're getting to do things. Clients want things. This is actually a privilege at times. So that simple reframe from I have to I get to can be a powerful way to start looking at stress in a positive light rather than it always being this negative thing, because I just don't think it is.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The last few weeks within my business have been some of the busiest weeks of my entire life. And it's all good things, just like a lot of fun projects, a lot of photo shoots, a lot of traveling, just a lot of good things. And I did begin to feel the pressure of perhaps probably not having that downtime and travel, whether you're flying, driving, commuting, it does kind of begin to grind you down a little bit. And I started to feel that like, oh, like this sucks. And I had to stop myself and think, Kayla, this life you're living was like on your mood board a few years ago. It was the dream. Like if someone had asked you to go and fly and do a podcast, or go and fly to do a full day shoot and jump on a boat and go out on the ocean and take photos and videos, like that is the dream. And I thought, okay, it is stressful, but it's good stress. And it's just the fact of a to-do list, right? It's just getting through each task one at a time and not letting the 100 tasks you have to do weigh down on you, just kind of breaking things down into smaller, manageable chunks.
Yeah, absolutely. That overwhelm, and I think you summed it up perfectly. How do you break it down into small little chunks so that you are biting off a little bit and moving in the right direction rather than going, oh, it's all too much and, throwing it all in the air.
Yeah.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au, and they'll point you in the right direction.
So other than that, if you're a business owner in the middle of a meltdown right now, Jay, what advice can you give to them? What are some actionable things we can do to get out of this meltdown?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of little tools, and it's about trying the ones that fit with you. Some will resonate with you, others won't. So just to try them, see what works for you. I think everyone should have a simple breathing strategy that they use. I can share a really simple one with you today. I like it. Lots of people use box breathing and a whole variety of other.
I love box breathing.
Yeah, they're fantastic and they're great. The one I like is just called the 4-5 method. It's super simple. Find yourself a little space, shut down the eyes, breathe in for 4 and out for 5, and just rinse and repeat through, 30 seconds, a minute's probably better. But when you do that, you will notice your whole system start calming down. Again, it's getting into that parasympathetic state to help you relax so that when you go into that next interaction, you're in a much more positive frame of mind, because, our emotions are contagious. And if you are stressed, well, your colleagues are probably stressed because you're going to be passing it on to them. And even worse, when you go home, you're going to pass that stress on to your family or your friends as well. So just spending a little bit of time hitting the reset button can be super valuable. So I think everyone should have a breathing exercise that they like to use.
And just quickly, sorry, on the 4-5 breath, according to my yoga teacher, the exhale being longer than the inhale is the most important part, right? Like that's the actual part that quietens down the mind and calms you down.
Yeah, so that's all about activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So you'll actually notice, as an example, if you think about maybe, I don't know if you watch football, before football players run onto the field, they want to pump themselves up. If they do that in the opposite direction, it's actually going to activate their sympathetic nervous system and get them fired up. So the next time you get in a fight, just do that reverse, and it can help you get really agitated, which is, going to be good for that fight. But if you want to relax, the 4-5 method. Yes. So that's exactly right.
So if you catch me like taking really short breaths, like you better get away because I'm getting ready to punch on.
You look very dangerous for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we've got the 4-5 breathing method. Do you have any other hot tips and tricks?
Yeah. So I think, meditation's often spoken about. It's something pretty much everyone I speak to has tried, and then they say they can't do it and they fail and they stop doing it because they think they're not doing it right. I hate to say it, no one's doing it right. Yeah. It's all about just pushing through and giving it a go. I use a Kirtan Kriya meditation, which is something, whilst it's still inward looking, I think it has an ability. Lots of the problems people face when it comes to meditation is that, it's focused on something internal. And when you're focusing on something that's internal, if you have a busy mind or maybe you're anxious, that's the worst thing that you can be doing. You need to be thinking that's something that's external to you. So maybe it's a walking meditation, or I like the Kirtan Kriya meditation because it's a finger tapping meditation and it gets you out of your head into your fingers. And so it's really simple. It's just a 12-minute meditation. You can have a look on YouTube. It's everywhere. It's got so many research reports around its amazing benefits for improving your stress levels, improving your cognition. They even say it's good for dementia. And it's simply a 12-minute meditation where you just do this finger tapping, nice and simple. Give it a try. Don't go and do 12 minutes. You won't be able to do that. But if you just try with 2 minutes and then work up to 4 minutes and 6 minutes and on you go, I think that is a wonderful way to start your day when it comes to stress management, or if you need a little break in the afternoon. So that's a good one. And then I think, we spoke about before reframing stress. And a lot about stress is realizing that the stress that we're worried about, the things that are really impacting us, they're probably not going to be a stress tomorrow or in 5 days. So why do we let it take up so much of our attention? And so I have this little saying when I'm stressed about something, I think about it and say, okay, am I really going to be worried about this in a week? And if I'm not, I just repeat the saying this too shall pass. And that's it. This too shall pass. Because lots of things we get so worked up about, if we project into the future and say, what's going to happen in 5 days? You're probably going to say, it's not going to make any difference in 5 days.
Yeah.
Now, if it isn't going to make a big difference, well, then we need to put some strategies in place to make sure that we're addressing it, that we're cutting it off. But if not, let's just let it go and move forward. Because at the end of the day, we live, most of us live in incredible lives. We have such opportunity. It's a blessing. Let's worry about the real problems rather than the first world ones.
Yeah, and I think that takes a little bit of practice as well as like a few years in business ownership, perhaps. Like I remember at the very beginning of me owning my business, everything felt like an emergency and everything felt like just the worst case scenario, because at that point, it was the worst case scenario. Nothing bad had actually happened prior to that. So everything just felt so important, and deadlines and people's expectations and whatnot. But as time goes on and you, I guess, build a bit more resilience and you have a few more runs on the board, you do realize that, yeah, this isn't going to matter in five years, let alone sometimes 5 minutes, honestly. Like sometimes I can just catastrophize a little bit and make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all on the journey and at different stages of the path. And so it's about working out saying, is this a sprint that I have to sprint right now? Or am I in a stage where, I can take the foot off the gas and relax a little bit? But yes, absolutely. Yeah. You're perfect. Definitely right.
And to finish up, I'd love to touch on burnout briefly, because I think, as we were talking before, like if you're in the middle of a stress meltdown right now, this would be a great episode for you. What are some identifiers of burnout for anyone feeling that they might, kind of be on the brink of burnout? And do you have any insight on how we can help to mitigate that?
Yeah, great question. So burnout will present in people very differently depending on the person. Some of the common things you start feeling is like apathy. You just don't care about certain things. You start lacking that motivation. It might be physical symptoms, like you just feel completely blah, burnout. You have more inflammation in your body, so you start feeling different, potentially injuries or headaches. Maybe you're more irritable. And usually your resilience is down as well, because your cup's full, and anyone that pours anything into there, it just pours over, and you completely have a meltdown for the smallest little thing. So it's very different. Everyone's different. You sort of need to have a look at how you present and take sort of stock of that. When it comes to burnout, and this is some of the work that we did back at Uni SC, is around, there's sort of 4 key components when it comes to burnout. So the 4 different areas are you having time to psychologically detach? So is there time, and this is hard for small business owners, very, very hard, is there time when you're not thinking about work?
No.
Yeah. Very hard. And
what do you mean? That's impossible.
And where you are on the journey. We're 10 years in, and there's still times where I think, geez, I've been thinking about work all the time. But is there, and it's different for everyone. Again, everyone's individuals, but are you having little moments where you're not thinking about work? You can really disconnect. That is super important. It's maybe the most important thing when it comes to either avoiding burnout or bringing yourself back from burnout. The second one is relaxation. We spoke about earlier, always in this sympathetic state. Is there times when you actually let your body down, regulate, and relax? Lots of people, especially business owners, go, 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 and they get on the weekend and they've been running at full pace all week, and they go, you know what? I should start doing marathons, or I should start doing triathlon training or something crazy. And so they're just constantly in this state of stress at work. It's a mental stress, or maybe it's a physical stress as well. And then on the weekends, they load up all this physical stress as well. So hugely problematic. So you need to have time where you can relax. The third component is mastery. Is there something that you are working on that you're sort of improving on, or it's a hobby? It doesn't have to be, you're a master of the universe or you're incredible at something. For me, as an example, I took up surfing. I took it up very late in life. I love it. I'm trying to master it. The only thing I've mastered is falling on my face, but It's just a hobby that helps me sort of detach from work. That's important. And then finally, and this is related to actually within work, do you have some sense of control? Is there some form of control? It doesn't have to be full control, but during your working week, do you have a sense of control? That is very, very important for burnout as well. So looking at those 4 components, we do a little activity in our workshops where we say sort of rate yourself, and then what can we do to actually improve those ratings?
And when you say control, is that do you feel in control of the stress or the stresses in your life? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, more around the task that you're doing. Is there some form of, agency or control over what you're doing, and you're not just constantly being sort of pushed around and bullied around, and you feel like everything's out of your control?
Yeah, gotcha. Because then if there isn't, maybe it's something to do with your, I don't know, I was going to say health, but you can kind of control your health. Maybe it's like you're putting so much onus on a client accepting or rejecting your proposal.
Correct.
And the control is not with you, it's actually with the client to accept that. So there's no point stressing over it. Let it go, let them do their thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I really hope that if you are listening today and you're in the middle of a stress meltdown, that these resources have really helped. I will link the meditation you said with the tapping.
Yes, Kirtan Kriya.
We'll add some information about that in the show notes. And I really do want to try that because I tried meditation back in the day. I did exactly what you did. What you said. I tried it. I found it a little bit hard, kind of gave up. And I've tried it again just a few months ago. And I found it actually harder than I did at the beginning, I think because my stress levels have increased. And I do like the way, like even right now as we're speaking, I have my little like stress ball, like a squishy ball that I like to use just to keep my hands busy or something. So I think like the tapping of the fingers will be good to get me out of my brain a little bit with meditation.
Absolutely, yes. Our little daughter does that as well. She likes to have something to, tactile to be able to get out of her head.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again for jumping on the podcast. This is episode 2 of 3, and we are about to jump into our 3rd episode about resilience. So I'm excited to do that one. Thank you again.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glenn James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.